Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from almost Philadelphia. I was in the city this morning doing lots of fun things that involved food, of course. I'm Char Nolan. Happy to see all of you here and happy to see so many great questions. Um, Before we jump into questions and other things, I did want to talk about two things. One fun thing is this book called Body on Fire by Dr. Monica Agarwal. It has an accompanying cookbook to it, and the cookbook is awesome. And I'm sure that Monica Agarwal would not mind me letting you know that she's also a Ruby grad. Her cookbook is great. Try her vegan Caesar salad dressing recipe. It's one of the best that I know. Pardon me. So, starting off with that, and I did want to talk about photos for a few minutes. And one of the reasons is that photos are such a strong component when learning online. And I wanted to remind everyone that for your mise en place, an overhead or a flat lay, being able to see all of your ingredients is so helpful. Remember that they have to be portioned and they have to be displayed. Leaving a can of beans in the photo doesn't tell me very much. So, opened, displayed, and portioned. And the other thing, and I believe that I sent Dan, who is our wonderful, Patrick, who's our wonderful producer today. And it's always fun to work with Patrick. So I'll give a shout out to Patrick. But I did send Patrick a website with a strong list of words to use when describing food. Because when we instructors read an assessment that you provided, when you say it was good, my family liked it, that doesn't really tell us very much. But if you use descriptive words like it was crispy and salty, or it had a robust flavor, or it was pungent, or what its texture was like. So the list of adjectives from the web restaurant store is so helpful. And what I would suggest to do is print it out and keep it somewhere where you frequently work when you are doing your Ruby assignments. I kept an old school binder and I liked to print things out so I could write on them and figure out where I had made a mistake or I put too much of something in. I know many people rely on using computers, which is fine, but I hope that everyone will take advantage of the web store list of foods, and it's broken down into categories. And the reason why I sent it also to Patrick was I just finished writing a story for Veg World magazine, and the article is called I'm Breaking Up With You. And it was about coffee and coffee alternatives that are grain based. And I happily went along writing the article thinking, oh, this is a great article. And when I read it for my first edit, I used the word robust 10 times in 1,200 words. So that's when I got out my trusty food thesaurus and found some other words other than robust. So I thought I would also share that with you. We have some great questions today, and I think we'll just dive right into them. And please feel free if you do have a question. I don't know if Patrick has closed the questions yet, but we will look and see. So the first one is from Luann. Hi, Luann. Love seeing you here. I heard aquafaba can be used in recipes as egg whites. Yes, it is true. If so, is any bean good for aquafaba? So here's the thing. I will save black bean aquafaba if I am making a chocolate dessert, simply because it's not going to change the color. It might enhance the chocolate even more. But for the most part, using garbanzo bean or cannellini, white navy bean, would be the preferred beans to use. And what you do want to do is after you drain the aquafaba, you can put it into little ice cube trays, much like these, and put them in 1 ounce increments so that when you get to use them, you pop them out and they will thaw quickly and evenly. And then you can go into making your aquafaba. Hopefully you have a good stand mixer or good egg beater or whatever. And that will be very helpful. When I work with children, They don't enjoy making aquafaba unless I have my fancy stand-up mixer because it gets done in seconds, so to speak. How long will it last in the fridge? I would put it in the freezer. And remember that most frozen things can stay in the freezer from 3 to 5 months. Remember to label and date it when you put it in the freezer. Great question. This is from JL. Hi, Jay. Can you recommend a process methodology in creating a recipe, moving from following a recipe to creating a recipe? A better approach than an empirical little of this, little of that. Preferred software to store recipes. Well, Jay, I write everything in longhand because it's what I know. When I have to write a recipe professionally, I do it all in longhand first, and I like to take notes as I go along to sort of tweak ingredients, add a little bit of this, take this out, don't use this. So my suggestion would be to perhaps look online. There are many recipe foundation websites that you can use. But I think starting from scratch with a notebook and a pen or a pencil is a really good way to go. And I also want to throw in, Jay, that a lot of what we do in the kitchen is almost instinctual, based on our preferences and our own flavors and tastes and things like that. You can email me, Jay. I might have some other ideas. Email me at char@ruby.com. I hope that you have lots and lots of recipes that you are saving and getting ready to work with. Very good question. Thank you. This is from Truly H. What do you save for vegetable stock? Is it okay if not organic? Yes, it's okay if it's not organic. So a plastic bag works great, and it can be anything from onion skins, actual onion skins, which will help enhance the color of the stock that you're going to make. It could be the ends of carrots. It could be the skins of potatoes, the skins of carrots, of anything. Going back to these silicone little cube here things, oftentimes I like to stuff these up with vegetable scraps and just put them in the freezer and then pop them out as I need them. Seems to make things a little easier. And also, just remember that onion skins, not only do they add flavor and color, but you can dehydrate them and then put them into a blender of some sort and make a delicious onion skin condiment that adds a lot of spunk and perk to a recipe. So any vegetable that you want, it doesn't need to be organic. And the most amazing thing, it's kind of interesting to see how quickly the bag that you're using or the little cube trays that you're using, how quickly they all fill up. So that is a very good question. You'll save a lot of money on buying ready-made stock and things like that. And yes, you do freeze them. Very good question. Luann, how should I clean and store mushrooms? I heard you shouldn't rinse underwater because they soak the water up like a sponge. Should I just wipe them off with a damp cloth? Also, what is the best way to store them in the refrigerator and how long do they keep? So I sent Patrick an article from Veg World magazine about mushrooms. I spent a day at a mushroom farm a couple of months ago and asked questions exactly like that, Luann. So the thing of it is that some people will go out and buy a mushroom brush, which is not necessary, but you can use a dry cloth, like a Turkish towel cloth, just to gently dust off any debris or little particles of dirt that might be there. I want to build up my microbiome, so eating a little bit of dirt, probably isn't all that horrible. The best way to store them. Okay, if you buy your mushrooms in one of those cellophane wrap containers where you see maybe 3 portobello mushrooms together or sliced mushrooms, I advise to not buy the sliced mushrooms because they oxidize quickly and they're not as fresh a product as when you might want to do that mushroom assignment where you want to have the freshest mushrooms that you can have. So you want to store them in a brown paper bag. And you can either use a brown paper bag or you can use a food storage linen bag. but do not store them in plastic because they will get slimy overnight. How long will they keep? Well, remember that you have a crisper in your refrigerator whose temperature is lower, or you can keep them in the rear of your refrigerator where you have the most constant temperature for keeping things cooled. Um, how long will they keep? I never have mushrooms last that long because I eat them practically every day. So when they start to get slimy or brown, slimy to the touch, I would eat them in that exact moment. But if they have an untoward odor to them, I would not eat them. Hope that helps. This is from Donna M. Hi, Char. What are some of your favorite combinations of whole grains plus beans, plus veggies, plus spices and herbs? Well, this is sort of an interesting question, Donna. When I went 12 years ago to the inaugural Engine 2 immersion in Austin, Texas, I had the extreme pleasure of meeting Jeff Novick, who over the years has become a very good friend. And as you may know, Jeff is a registered dietitian who works with the McDougall program. And uh, he just sort of has his ear to the ground. And the one thing that I learned from him was this, that you have one basic recipe. So let's say that I'm going to use sweet potatoes, oatmeal, flaxseed meal. I'm going to put it all together and I'm going to divide it in three. And one is going to be Italian. And then the other one is going to be Mexican. And the other one will be Indian. And this is what I learned from Jeff. And this is how I have cooked for the last 12 years. When I make a big pot of soup that has your aromatic vegetables in it, and it's a beautiful color, much like the simple cabbage soup recipe, you can divide that recipe into threes and you can add garbanzo beans and more tomatoes, or you can add curry to it or whatever. So think globally in flavors and what you like. I do have a recipe that I'm very fond of. It's in the Engine 2 cookbook. It's called the Yo Adrian Burger because I live in Philadelphia. And that has lots of oats and quinoa in it because I'm always very cognizant of trying to get in as much protein as we can get from eating a plant-based diet. And as you know, quinoa contains all of the 9 essential amino acids, making it a perfect protein food. So I hope that, just get creative with it and have fun. My favorite beans to use, by the way, are white beans just because they mash up easily and they hold well to whatever it is that you're making. And don't forget a binding agent, either chia seeds or flaxseed meal or whatever. Hope that's helpful to you. I want to see your burgers when you're done. Maria, there is no such thing as a silly question. How do I get good knife skills? I did the cutter on the flour for over half an hour. Kept trying with the various vegetables I chopped. My thumb and baby finger keep appearing in front. Does sound. I'm not even going to read that sentence. So here's what I want to say. Do you remember when you learned how to ride a bicycle? How you kept trying, and then all of a sudden you had that one aha moment where your brain and your feet and the pedals all work together in sync. And you practiced a lot to get that bicycle ride. So I suggest, I think the flour method is really good. I like to take a carrot, a big carrot or a potato, and cut it into a square or rectangle. And I like to practice with a potato. One thing you might want to do is if you have a small tripod or something like that. I had one on my desk. I don't see it now. But if you have a tripod, you could tape yourself cutting the vegetables so that you can see exactly what your technique is and what you might need to improve so that you feel confident with your knife skills. And I've shared with many people here, when I finished Ruby, I took a knife cutting class at a local community college, and it gave me the confidence that I needed. And then also made me realize that I really did know how to cut vegetables. And lastly, don't compare yourself to Bobby Flay or any of those other chefs on TV because they can cut vegetables at meteoric speeds. And think of where you are. I would tape myself and just keep enjoying the process because your knife skills actually identify a dish so well. And when I have a friend, and I think I've mentioned this before, his name is Dave Navarro, a different Dave Navarro. And it was always so fun to go out to eat with him because he would say, oh my God, this is going to be a terrible meal because look at the cuts of these vegetables. So just keep practicing. Great question, Marie. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is from Debbie M. Oh, Deb, this is a great question. I understand the concept of pan tossing. However, I have an induction stove and was wondering whether the procedure is the same on the induction stovetop, since when I lift the pan off the stove, the heat is suspended. So it's a great question. I purposefully do not toss when I use my induction stovetop because I am afraid that I'm going to crack it. And I did send Patrick an article this morning that discusses some of the elements of tossing. I just use a good scraper when I am on a pan. And generally speaking, my scraper is either going to be silicone or my scraper is going to be wooden. And later we'll talk a little bit more about wood versus silicone, but there's that article for you, and I hope that that helps. Okay, how do you keep pancakes from sticking to a steel pan and make them look brown on both sides? Roy, that is a great question. And so there are a couple of things that come into play. The first one is I don't know what kind of batter you're using. So that has something to do with it. I don't know exactly what temperature you're cooking at, but one thing that I love, sorry about that. One thing that I love to use is a nice metal spatula. And you kind of go in gently or gingerly around the sides to see how it looks. Generally speaking, when those bubbles appear, those little bubbles that come, you want the bubbles to pop. And once all the bubbles have popped, then you know that it's time to flip them. Probably 2 to 3 minutes, you flip them with your handy dandy spatula. Some people like using one that's angulated so you can go in a little bit easier. And then once you flip it, you can cook it for about a minute. And that should give you the perfect pancake. But it's those bubbles that you want to see pop open and go away, letting out some steam, and then you just flip them and there you go. So very good question. I would like to grow my own herbs indoors. Any tips on this from Luann? So for years, I was telling my husband that I wanted to grow my own windowsill herbs. And for Christmas one year, he got me an arrow garden. And I love the arrow garden. And I have grown lettuce and tomatoes from it and lovely, lovely herbs. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more cost effective, because the arrow garden has timed lighting and it tells you when to put water in and it tells you when to put food in. But if you want to be a little bit more practical, a paper cup and a couple of seeds of your favorite herbs will work beautifully. Grow on your windowsill. You'll be happy as ever, and they grow, 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 grow. So I would start with, I like spearmint, I like basil, and I like oregano and dill. And the dill is a pretty easy thing to also grow. So the other nice thing, Luann, is that it totally changes not only the finishing appearance of a dish if you're using it as a garnish, but it also adds such a nice fresh flavor to any dish. So I say start growing your own windowsill herbs. Very good question. So we have another good question from Luann. Don't go away, Luann. Wood utensils versus silicone utensils, is one better than the other? So that's kind of a difficult question to answer, but I will tell you this. This is a Tovolo. I don't know if anybody knows this brand. I think that they have gotten everything down pretty well. One end is a spoon and the other is like a mini spatula, poker, whatever you want to call it. I like using this because it's very easy to clean so that you can maintain a very aseptic kind of utensil once it has been washed in warm water. However, ecologically speaking, I do also like wooden utensils. My one thing about wooden utensils is that you want to treat them the same way that you treat a wooden cutting board for cleaning. So when I clean my wooden cutting board, I use an acid, I use lemon juice. So for this, you're going to boil some water and you're going to put the water in a vessel of some sort and add about a cup of white vinegar and store them in face down. And after about an hour, you're going to see a very big contrast in color because what it does is that it will leach out any dirt or any food debris that might not be visual to the eye. Um, a wooden utensil will break things up, and the silicone is a little bit more delicate and might not give you the texture that you want. So, for example, if you're making simple cabbage soup, and I don't think it should be called simple cabbage soup. I think it should be called cabbage soup because it's so delicious. But if you wanted to mash up your potatoes and your carrots, this would do a much, much better job. So I hope that that is helpful. I think most of it is based on preference, and good luck with whatever you decide to use. Is making my own pasta healthier than store-bought pasta? This is again from Luann. Well, I'm going to say this. Um, there is nothing more delicious in the world than freshly made or homemade pasta. It just has a wonderful texture. The sauce adheres beautifully to it. It's fun to make. And once you eat homemade pasta, it might be hard to go back to eating the ones that come out of a box. I look for pasta that is bronze cut. And if you go back to the unit on pasta, it talks a lot about how much more efficient a bronze cut pasta is, like a rigatoni or maybe a penne or whatever, and how sauces will adhere much better to them. Read the ingredient list. Most of them are made with flour, water, and salt. It can be time consuming, but it's so much fun and certainly conjures up all kinds of memories of my own childhood. Having been the cavatelli counter in my house, that was my big job. Thank you so much. This is from Estella. Oh, hi, Estella. ¿Cómo va? For health benefits, what is the best spray oil to use? Well, I'm going to answer that question as though Dr. Esselstyn were sitting next to me, and the answer would be no oil spray. Jeff Novick would give you the same answer. So I don't feel comfortable answering that question because I don't cook with oil sprays. Isn't that funny? But everything I make comes out and works. And I think if you find something whose flavor you like and who works efficiently for you, then that would be my answer. So I hope that's helpful to you. This is from Carmelia. Do you have any tips on how to cook hash browns? Okay. Kim Campbell from Plant Pure Nation, Jane Esselstyn from Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. They have two great ways to cook hash browns, and I'll tell you what they are. You can use either freshly grated potatoes that you want to then put into cold water so that they don't turn brown, or you can use the Woodstock brand of hash browns, which contain no oil. And you open up your panini machine or a waffle iron, and you throw that big mound of frozen potatoes on there, and you close it. And after about 20 minutes, you have the most beautiful flag or gigantic wafer of oil-free hash browns ever. So that would be one recommendation. The other recommendation is I actually like making hash browns on a sheet pan in a 425-degree oven, taking those potatoes that were resting in water, draining them well because you don't want them to steam, you want them to get crispy. Um, and I think that would also work very well for you. All right, hope that's helpful. Some recipes call for plant-based yogurt. Is there something I can use as a substitute as I have not been able to find it? Well, the first thing that you want to do is find one that does not contain sugar and strawberries and whatever. So Nancy's, Nancy apostrophe S, makes very good oat milk yogurt. And the plain variety is delicious. And I use it in all kinds of things. And what I have done is saved the end of it to then use it as a starter to make more of my own yogurt, my own plant-based yogurt. So it's in the dairy department. And if you look among all of the yogurts, it's usually in the highest shelf because for some reason they don't want children to see it. I don't exactly know. I'm being humorous there, but Nancy's is good. Soy Delicious makes a very good plain yogurt. It also comes in a 16-ounce tub. So Soy Delicious and Nancy's would be my two. Yoplait makes one, but it has, I've never seen a plain one before. I hope that helps. It's very good on a baked potato. Oh, it's Laura C. Hello, Chef Char. Do you have a favorite rice cooker, particularly for brown rice? Well, Laura, I think you know that I am in love with my Sojirushi Japanese rice cooker. I bought one that was repurposed because they can be a little on the expensive side. And it plays delightful tunes when I'm done. And it has about 8 settings for different kinds of rice. So it will accommodate any kind of rice that you use. The rice, brown rice, comes out so fluffy and delicious that it's almost too good to be true. So I think you've seen pictures of it on my Instagram because it's just so much fun to use. And also very easy to clean. And I really appreciate that the most. And I also cook beans in it, and it cooks beans perfectly. We've had this discussion before. A while back, I purchased an Instapot, and I may be the only person in America that wasn't crazy about it. And Patrick, who's our producer today, he always has to walk me away from the cliff because setting up for the events can sometimes be, for me, a little harrowing. And I didn't like the Instapot because it made me feel as though I was landing a helicopter. It was just way too technical. And by time it gets to where it's supposed to go, you can have already boiled a pot of water and made some pasta. So anyway, I think some people also like making their rice in an Instapot. And I also have a microwave rice cooker that can cook rice in 20 minutes, which is much faster than the Sojirushi. I hope that helps. Good to see you, Laura. This is from Ana Maria Isabel. Any tips on what winter veggies can be added to my cooking wish list? Not too complicated to cook, hopefully. Well, it depends what seasonal vegetables are in season where you live. Right now we're in the fall, so broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables and kale, winter squashes and things like that are coming into be. I say use your instinct, have fun, cut them in a way that you'll know they'll cook successfully, whether you roast them or steam them or bake them or boil them, and just have fun with those vegetables that you have purchased. This is from Margot. Oh, hi, Margot. I've noticed that taking the heart out of garlic helps digestion. Is this just us or is this well known? What makes the heart so indigestible? Many thanks and lovely meeting you. Well, Margot, it's nice meeting you too. I enjoy your questions when you send them in, and I hope that the responses have been helpful. Uh, I grew up in an Italian household. I have never taken the heart out of garlic. So I am not sure that I have ever heard this before. Now, I know that you're right now living in France, and maybe garlic there is of a different variety, but I've been to Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of the world, and I have never heard of this, but I'm going to look into it. And I hope you're having a great day. Or, well, where you are right now, it's probably evening. So it's very nice to meet you as well. Oh, right. This is from Omar. Oh, this is a nice question. I struggle with organization and planning. Could you maybe outline the steps you take to make a week of meals? I have two kids and a wife. The unexpected constantly foils my plans, and either I make too much, too little, or something the kids won't touch. So, the first question is, how old are the children and how involved are they in food prep and maybe helping to design the family menu, or maybe grow grocery shopping, or help you make an Instacart order or whatever? Um, the easiest thing that I can say to this is doing things like batch cooking a bunch of rice and batch cooking a 5 pound bag of potatoes. Just throw them in the oven, just bake them. They're there because they can become the foundation for so many things. If you're a family that likes tofu, um, the Ruby recipe for the marinated tofu, in my opinion, is one of the best recipes ever because you can use it in salads. If you make a banh mi, you can use it, cut it into croutons if you make a salad. But I definitely would involve everyone, find out what their favorite foods are. And then, as long as you have those potatoes and that rice in order, because they are the longest things to cook when you think about it. Um, it sounds to me like that's a very good way to plan. When my kids were growing up, we had a 3 week rotation of menus. Don't think I'm that organized, but it worked most nights. And it just kind of helped to, move things along. And lastly, don't call leftovers leftovers, but name the dish. Because if somebody says to you, hey, what are you having for dinner tonight? And you say leftovers, most people already have conjured up an opinion about leftovers. So you want to give it a new name or something like that. That might also be helpful. Um, Sounds like you have a busy house. And a crock pot might be something helpful where you can pre cook some beans. And I'll give you a great example. If you um, batch cook a bunch of sweet potatoes, you can make a Texas caviar. It'll keep for 5 days. So you can have that sweet potato with Texas caviar, and you could have some tofu with it and lots of other things, some delicious rice. So you just kind of want to figure out what goes together and what your family likes. That's a great question. Oh, they're 6 and 3. The youngest is very interested. He will help make food and then refuse to eat it. The oldest is not at all interested, but he'll eat at least a little of what we make. So that's a great start. And, this week I was grading an assignment and I saw the sweetest thing ever where a student was pouring her chocolate ganache mixture into the pie plate that's filled with pecan crust. And her little daughter was holding the canister to the food processor. And I just thought that that was such a great thing. What I will say is, Omar, do not succumb to the new wave of easy plant based foods that are coming onto the market because A, they're expensive and they're highly, highly processed. Most are highly processed. So keep the kids in the kitchen. Um, And it sounds like you're off to a really good start. And I'm glad you found the responses helpful. This is from Carmelia. How do you cut herbs from a plant? With a good pair of kitchen shears. That's all. Not from the top, but go to the stem. And that's what I do, and it works very, very well if you use it in the minute. If you're not going to use it in the minute, cut it, put it on a paper towel, fold it, roll it up, stick it in a plastic bag, put it in the refrigerator. It'll stay fresh for about 5 days. Hi, Kate. Do I have a favorite oil-free dressing recipe? I do. The unit on oil-free dressings as Ruby was my own personal springboard to creating delicious, bountiful, thick, creamy dressings. And my favorite is the Dijon vinaigrette. And what I like to do with that is make the basic recipe and then throw some flaxseed meal in it, and then take my immersion blender, and it gets like a super, super creamy, like something wishbone-y from 1980. Pardon me. In Jane Esselstyn's new book, Be a Plant-Based Woman Warrior, she has some great recipes. But Kate, I go back to this. What do you like? What are your favorite flavors? If you like Italian dressing, grab that garlic, use your favorite red wine vinegar. And if you like adding nuts to it, you can add nuts to it. I also like to just take hummus and dilute it with some spices and maybe a couple of drops of vinegar. Use that immersion blender, and you get a really nice, creamy salad dressing that's so delicious and so quick to make. So do a search for oil-free dressings, Jane Esselstyn, and you'll see a lot of really good recipes come up. Great question. And we have a double header from Kate. I live in Philly. We're in the National League playoffs. Had to make at least one baseball pun. I'm having a hard time finding wild mushrooms. Any recommendations on where to find them? Well, unfortunately, I live 20 minutes from the mushroom capital of the world. So that's an easy thing to do. So I often will grow my own. You buy a mushroom kit online and grow a couple of pounds of oyster mushrooms, and they're very good. You may have to go to a specialty grocery store for that. I do know that some mushroom growers will send wild mushrooms. There is a store in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania called the Mushroom Cap. Get it? Mushroom Cap, Mushroom Capital. And she will ship up to 400 miles and has a lovely variety of wild mushrooms as well. You could also, I don't know where you're using them for, but you could buy dehydrated mushrooms. There are lots of wild varieties. Again, you may have to go to a specialty store or to Whole Foods or wherever, and you can rehydrate them, and that might work well for you. So I hope that helps. I'll be curious to see your oil-free salad dressings. Thanks so much, Kate. Hello, Chef Char. My friend has anemia. What foods should I suggest she eat? And what foods prevent the absorption of iron? Well, I eat a lot of leafy greens. And when I do go to the physician, he's always impressed with my iron level and the fact that I don't take an iron supplement and that I don't eat red meat. My suggestion would be for your friend or you to connect with a registered dietitian and ask more specific questions. But for me personally, leafy greens, like dark leafy greens, like kale, arugula, spinach, other things like that, that are also iron rich. There's a little bit of iron in raisins. Hope that helps. And I wish your friend a speedy return to a good hemoglobin. Hello, Andrea. How are you? So before I answer Andrew's question, people who live in Kennett Square, the mushroom capital of the world, take mushrooms so seriously that on New Year's Eve, instead of dropping a ball, they drop a gigantic crystal mushroom. And that's how you know that the new year has arrived in Kennett Square when the mushroom bowl drops. So we talked about mushrooms a couple of minutes ago, and I did give Patrick the link to an article about mushrooms, but the answer is no, they should not be washed. Remember that mushrooms are about 90% liquid to begin with, so they don't need to have any added moisture. When you want to clean them, just dust them off with either a soft facial brush or just a kitchen towel. Just brush, 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 and they will get sparkly clean for you. So I eat mushrooms every day. So I never worry about what they look like. I only like to hope that they taste good. A couple of things before we go, going back to silicone. I use a silicone brush for basting. I like it much better than ones that are made out of synthetic or real fibers. This cleans really easily, and I can put it into the dishwasher and it works well. And this is from Sur La Table, and this is a scraper for your Vitamix. And this will get every ounce of hummus, cashew bechamel, pasta sauce, anything that you have put into your Vitamix or other high-speed blender. It just gets right in there. And again, it's also very easy to clean. And I use this to get to the bottom of an almond butter jar, just so that I can get everything out so that there isn't any food wasted. And the last thing is that I have these bowls, and they have suction cups on the bottom so that when I am in the kitchen making something that I'm mixing manually, it plops on the kitchen top. Very scientific word, but it seals closed, and then you can just mix, mix, mix. And they're just beautiful bowls, and I don't remember where I got them, but I just thought I would show them to you today. A good spatula, some wooden utensils, a tovolo. I love tovolo. These are very helpful for storing your vegetable scraps, even your aquafaba. So I think that kind of wraps everything up. I will say that for those of you who are active students right now, hope you're enjoying every minute, because it all goes by very quickly. And I'm going to go back to Omar for just 1 second. Because that skill of being organized for your shopping list is something that you can carry over into preparing for your Ruby assignments. So when I was a Ruby student many, many years ago, I would pick my assignments, and then I would look for assignments that had relative ingredients so that I wasn't making a million treks to the grocery store. And the other thing is I did all of my grocery shopping at H Mart, the world's largest Asian super grocery chain, because they had everything that I needed, especially in the way of sauces. So try and get yourself thinking about, okay, what am I going to make this week where I can share ingredients, and that will make things just more fun for you, because this should be a lot of fun. And I think we have no more questions. We had a great turnout today. I'm always so happy to see everyone. And before I close, I just want to say, this morning, I work in a part of Philadelphia that's called Sharswood. Has nothing to do with me. And they just opened a new grocery store, the first grocery store in 25 years in this under-resourced community. And I said to one of my colleagues, let's do a grocery store tour, because it's a grocery outlet and they don't always have items that you would think, but I wanted to show them how to shop so that they would know what to do when they got there. So here's the funny story. every week when I cook at the farm, I will always say, oh, well, this ingredient, and I'll have a box of it, is located on the bottom shelf of the soup aisle at the grocery outlet. And specifically, we're talking about a low sodium broth by Imagine. And when we went on our grocery tour today, there was none left. And the manager said to me, he goes, yeah, Chef Char, we were really wondering what the deal was, but we sold out of that about a week ago, and we've never sold out of it before. My point here is that as chefs, we all have things that we love and things that we do with, enjoyment and whatever. And reaching out to under-resourced communities is a great way to take everything that you've learned at Ruby and share it with many, many people. And I'm hoping that's something that many of you will get to do as you become practicing chefs. So that's all I have. Let's go Phils. Let's go Eagles. And thanks so much. It's always enjoyable to be here with you, and sending lots of love from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Happy cooking.